The island of Timor lies about 700 kilometers north of the Australian coastline and is the most southern point of the largest archipelago in the world, Indonesia. It is one island with two nations separated by a land border, Timor-Leste to the east and Indonesia to the west. The Timorese Special Administrative Region of Akusi sits on the Indonesian coastline about an 8-hour drive from Dili. Timor-Leste's capital city has many benefits and local attractions to be the central hub for international tourists. But since the country first became independent 19 years ago, a well-developed government infrastructure to support them has not yet materialized. It is by far the country's largest city, but at the same time is quite small in area. This provides an ideal environment for tourists to safely wander the streets day or night and take in the local culture. The majority of companies which organize tours have their offices in Dili and are internet connected for visitors to book online and in advance of their arrival at the Nicolau Lobato International Airport. Passengers can buy SIM cards and phone credit from two independent internet providers whose offices are adjacent to the terminal and the pickup point for taxis and hotel transport. By the time they reach their destination, they can already be online. However, this depends on whether the connection to the satellite receivers is working fast or slow. Timor-Leste's internet service is erratic. It lags far behind the rest of the world in regard to constant, uninterrupted upload and download speeds, which can dramatically fluctuate at any time of the day or night. The city centre is a quick 15-minute drive away, and there are two main routes tourists can take. People in a hurry to reach their accommodation are whisked along a dual highway that connects the airport to the city centre. The most popular way is a scenic trip along the coastal road, with empty beaches and a calm sea on the left, and many foreign embassy buildings to the right, nestling in the shadow of a towering mountain range. The island lies east-west, and most days of the year there are beautiful and sometimes spectacular sunrises and sunsets that offer a fantastic opportunity for great holiday photos. Accommodation is plentiful and caters for the backpacker to the high-end tourist. However, prices are more expensive than most popular tourist spots in the ASEAN region. The port of Dili is adjacent to the CBD and is geared up to efficiently handle the arrival and departure of international cruise ships, which normally anchor out in deeper water. Small tenders ferry the passengers to the pier, where a local arts and craft market has been set up to give them their first taste of Timorese culture. A traditional dance group adds color and sound. A large public passenger ferry also runs regular return trips to the Timorese enclave of Akusi in neighboring West Timor. Local charter boat companies also use the port area as a pickup point for tourists heading to the nearby Aotearoa Island, which is internationally famous for its spectacular diving locations. A relatively unknown quirk of nature is the stretch of ocean between Dili and Aotearoa, known as the Ombai Wetar Strait, which reaches a depth of over 3,000 meters. A visiting professor at the National University of Timor-Leste, Karen Edivane, has spent many years studying the enormous amount of marine life that can be found in the strait.
Back in 2007, we did some very detailed aerial surveys and we spotted 2,000 animals just in one day, and that's extraordinary. And if we look at the species diversity, we're looking at probably 24, maybe 25 species of cetaceans in Timor. That puts it right at the very top of some of the most significant, global cetacean hotspots in the world.
Portugal colonized Timor-Leste for over 400 years, and its influence can still be seen and tasted in many Portuguese restaurants. There are not many historic buildings still standing in Dili, but close to the port is the Governor's Palace and Casa Europa, where tourists can go and see a fine example of Portuguese architecture. When the Indonesian forces reluctantly withdrew, hundreds of buildings were burnt and destroyed by the angry soldiers being transported by road to West Timor. Several of these buildings can be seen and are ghostly reminders of the past. The streets have many small local restaurants and coffee shops, providing mainly Indonesian-style food. But there's very few places that have traditional Timorese cuisine. The Executive Director of Permaculture Timor-Leste, Eugenio Lemos, wants this to change.
Hahang, ita tengi formação da comunidade seronsa tem hahang nebe maka dia, hahang nebe mak saudável, hahang nebe mak natural, hahang nebe mak tengi local e usa temperos local nebe maka ita lá hetang iha restaurante sira. E segundo quando babat remunião how for exemplo nesse café né café Timor famoso teve esse mundo mas vai hira quando é mamãe Timor mas ita for fale nesse café ka ita for fale café tugu boia ka ita for fale café ser nebe ma instant né mamãe Timor é uma expressa que se tem lá com mãe nebe bot ser né tem que hare dia boa tira mak estraga ita desafio boa tira ma lisu ne mak sai obstáculo bot lá limar ba Timor se ita bele zero lisu for hasai consciência comunidade sine atu bele zero lisu horidia ita tau lisu hene fating depois la bele soia arbiru la bele soia mota la bele soia tasi mak hafer ho idane ita bele nasira attracting tourists.
Rubbish is an eyesore for tourists. Throughout the city and suburbs, there are many public collection areas, which on a daily basis are quickly filled, and the rubbish soon overflows onto the streets. After heavy rain, discarded garbage from villages in the mountains flows down a number of large rivers into the sea, heavily polluting Dili's beaches. Another negative factor for Dili is that a sewage treatment plant is a thing of the future. Raw sewage mixed with debris and discarded rubbish flows 24 hours a day through polluted canals directly into the sea, parallel to the scenic route to the city. A larger problem is when a visitor gets caught short, meaning they need a toilet in a hurry. There are no public toilets in Dili. There are many popular tourist spots to be explored in Dili and the nearby suburbs. A must-see for most visitors is the nearby 27-meter-tall statue of Jesus, perched on a small mountaintop just outside the city limits. To get up close to this impressive statue, tourists are faced with a physical climb of over 300 steps to reach the top. However, their reward is the spectacular panoramic view from the base of the statue. Close to most of the city's tourist accommodation spots is the infamous cemetery at Santa Cruz, where in 1991 Indonesian soldiers opened fire on a huge crowd of unarmed people inside. They were protesting the death of a young man who had been murdered by occupation troops outside a church earlier in the day. More than 270 young people were shot dead, and countless others were injured in the deliberate attack. However, the tragedy was secretly filmed and smuggled out to Australia. When it was shown to the world, an international outrage followed. A resistance museum dedicated to the civilian struggle against the Indonesian occupation is located within the city limits. Just across the road, there's an historic media centre established by Max Stahl, the Australian cameraman who risked his life to film the Santa Cruz massacre. He is now a national hero of Timor-Leste. Dili has an efficient minibus service called microlets. These small and sometimes packed buses go everywhere around the city and nearby suburbs for the meagre price of 25 cents a trip. There are no designated stops, and passengers can get on and off whenever they want along the minibus routes. The local currency is the US dollar, and ATM machines are easily found throughout the city. The only hiccup here is that all of them only accept cards linked to Visa. People with MasterCards cannot withdraw funds. There are many apotheques, small health clinics and chemist shops dotted around the city. However, only one offers first-class medical treatment for tourists should they need urgent attention. One delightful aspect of a trip to Dili is the warmth and friendliness of the Timorese people. Visitors walking the street can be expected to be greeted with smiles and curiosity, especially from children of all ages who take great delight in interacting with overseas visitors. Despite Portuguese being the official language, many young people are desperate to learn and practice their English and take every opportunity they can to converse with a foreigner. For budget travellers who prefer to use private public transport to help complete their Timor bucket list, this can normally be a frustrating experience. Punctuality and timetables are non-existent. Only when the driver is happy with the numbers of passengers, the trip begins. Many of the roads to the major tourist attractions are still in poor condition, and the government has yet to repair the severe damage caused by the worst flooding in the country's history in April 2021. A reliable domestic air service would be more appealing to tourists, says Jeremiah Chan, the Vice President of the Timor-Leste Hotel Owners Association.
Desenvolver turismo ni lá fácil. Lá fácil. Primeiro, precisa infrastruktur turismo. Infrastruktur baru ni, governo tem que halo, hanesan aeroporto, nomos aksesu, estrada, nomos tem que ia infrastruktura dia, hanesan bemos, eletricidade nebe stabil, nomos fasilitas selutan, hanesan fasilitas medical nebe dia. Infrastruktura selutan, hanesan liu hotel, restaurante, ne mak sektor pribado, sempre ihanasan selutan mak jere. Ini importante. So atu desenvolver sektor turismo ni iha faktor barat. Nomos tem que iha cooperação de husi parte hotu lao sektor pribado de inclui governo no sociedade civil tem que serviço hamutu para halo to'o turismo ni sai suksesu iha Timor-Leste.
Jeremiah's business took a big hit because of the corona epidemic, but he says these quiet times should be utilized by the government to develop a firm tourism infrastructure.
Preparação importante para bainhira nação ni loke fali, loke ni oda matan fali, avião começa fila fali mai Timor-Leste, fatin domestic tourism ni agora sira hanesan iha experience ya kona ba tourism ona ni hanesan preparação, trial run, preparação ba international tourism.
On the surface, Dili appears to offer what most tourists expect when visiting a different country. But there are many underlying major challenges that need to be resolved before the city can hold its head up high and fulfill all the needs of its visitors.
Oh,